Welcome to
Release Readiness Live.
It is important to watch Release Readiness Live so that you get a snippet of the coming attractions of the functionality that's coming from Salesforce.
We really focus on the features that are going to be most useful and impactful.
With Release Readiness Live, you get the great opportunity to actually hear it from the mouths of the people who spend a lot of time thinking about what exactly you all as Salesforce developers and admins are actually wanting to see.
Your feedback is so important. I think that's one of the most amazing things actually about the Salesforce ecosystem is how involved Trailblazers are with evolution of our products.
Is RRL about to start?
Let's get it started.
Welcome to Release Readiness Live. I'm Carolyn Bathauer, Senior Customer and Product Evangelist, and sometimes also known as Salesforce Sparkle Pony, and your new host of RRL. I love bringing you all of the great new release readiness content, and this week has been nothing short of amazing. We have one final episode for you. It is the admin preview. Over the next hour, our amazing product managers will give us live demos highlighting the top admin features in the Winter 25 release. And making a special appearance, Angela Lee, Director of Product Management of Agentforce, is here with us. But before we dive into what's new for admins, I do need to remind you to only make purchasing decisions on existing features and functionality. And here at Salesforce, we always like to start with a thank you for investing your time with us today and for all the feedback that you provide. We're listening, and it makes our product better. You can find today's episode and all of our RRL content on demand on Salesforce Plus. Check out Sales, Flow, Developer, Service, Health Cloud, and CRMA. And as you watch, join the chat on Salesforce Plus. We have product experts standing by to answer your questions, so go ahead and drop them in the Q&A. And we'll also take some of your questions live. And if you still have questions after the show, you can post them in the Release Readiness Trailblazer community, #SalesforceRRL. All right, let's get into it. First up, Ben Sklar, Director of Product Management, and he's here to show us the latest in user access enhancements. Ben, take it away.
Thank you, Carolyn. Hey, everyone. My name is Ben Sklar. I'm a Director of Product Management on the Salesforce platform, and I manage our backend data services like the User Interface API, the GraphQL API, and the Setup platform. And I'm so excited today to talk about the new user access enhancements coming in winter of 25. Up first, we are modernizing the user list views. We are bringing the same list view that you all know and love from Salesforce into the admin experience. And with that, you'll be able to customize the user list view and select the fields that you want to see in that list view. You'll also be able to pin your most used list view for easy access later. And we're finally bringing inline editing, which I know you admins are so excited about. You'll be able to edit fields directly from the list. This was over 12,000 idea exchange points. Please know that this must be turned on in the user management settings in the winter release. And that's because there's a few fields that are not yet supported, but we're working very hard to get those fields out for a future release so that this can be on by default. But for now, please turn it on in the user management settings. Now, we've also enhanced the user access summary. And to let you all in on a little secret, the user access summary is going to become the new user record page. Now, in the winter release, we can now edit key standard and custom fields right from the summary, and we have a new row-level action called Access Granted By, where you can see where a user is getting access from right in the summary, and we're going to see that soon. We're also launching our brand new Object Access Summary, so you can see how access is granted right in the Object Manager. This was over 10,000 idea exchange points, and we're excited to show it to you live very soon. We've also enhanced the Public Group Access Summary, and to let you all in on another secret, the Public Group Summary is going to become the new Public Group page. And so we have an all-new experience for managing public group membership. You can add and remove members right from this summary. Now, a few of you admins came up to us earlier this year at Trailblazer DX, and you asked us, why is there no description field on public groups and queues? and we didn't have a good answer for you because we really should have had it. So we do now as of the winter release, and this was 2,000 idea exchange points we could retire. All right, it's time to see some of these features live in action. So let's go right to the demo. So I am going to go now inside of Setup, and I'm going to go to the User Management Settings, and I am going to enable the new Enhanced User List View. Now that that's turned on, I'm going to go to Users, and as an admin, there's a few things I need to do on my plate. There is a user named Jenny who's in sales, and she had a great quarter. It's time to give her a promotion. So let's go ahead and create a new list view. We're going to call it My List View, and we are going to save. And there it is. And what I'm going to do, I am going to add a new field. I'm going to add the title field to the visible fields. And I'm going to move that up. All right, now we're going to search for Jenny Sales, who is getting promoted, and we can see she's currently a sales rep. We're going to make her a senior sales rep, and I'm doing this in line right in the user list view. And if I wanted to, I could edit the title of other users all at once. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and there it is. How much easier is that? Wow. I'm going to click on Jenny now, and I'm just going to confirm. There she is. She's a senior sales rep. Now, I've been told that Jenny can delete accounts, and we don't want that. So I'm going to confirm that first. I'm going to go to the summary. I'm going to go to object permissions, and I'm confirming here that for the account object, she in fact can delete accounts, which we don't want. So why is that the case? Well, we're going to look at that new row level action called access granted by, and inside we can see all of the permission sets, the permission set groups, and the profiles that grant access to the account object. For Jenny, we can see it's not a permission set, but it's actually a permission set group. It's the sales rep and also her profile, the sales rep's profile that lets Jenny delete the account object. So now that I know that, I can go into that profile and into that permission set group and make the necessary changes. The last thing we need to do on our plates, we need to check for the contact object. How are we getting access to this across all permission sets, permission set groups, and profiles? So I'm going to go into the object manager for contact. I'm then going to go to object access. And wow, in just one click, I can see all of my permission sets. And in a few more, I can see all the permission set groups and profiles that are granting access to the contact object and the level of access, all in just a few clicks. This is going to save me so many hours, and I know it's going to save all of you admins so many hours of time as well. We don't need to click into every permission set one by one or permission set group or profile to find out how we're getting access. It's all right here. And that concludes the demo. Let's talk about our plan and roadmap and vision for user management over the next 6 to 18 months. We've got a lot of awesome new features we have planned. We're going to add more summaries. We're going to have more list views. We're going to start adding troubleshooting with AI and Agentforce. We're going to be able to clone users. We'll be able to compare access between users and between permission sets. And we'll even be able to export the data you see in the summary as well. However, we want to hear from all of you admins out there. So let's keep the conversation going on the new Roadmap Exchange, which is now available in beta. On here, you can share with us your use cases, you can check out all the latest features, you can comment on our plan features, and even post new idea exchange ideas. So head over to sfdc.co/user-access-roadmap, and let's keep the conversation going. Your feedback is so valuable to us, and we want to hear from you. With that, thank you all so much. I'm going to pass it back to Carolyn.
Awesome. Great job. This chat is on fire. There are a few. It's like Christmas, Jamie says. This one I do love. Steve, user lists are finally getting off the 8-bit Nintendo UX. And then also, user list is the update of my dreams, according to Julia. So thank you all for tuning in. If you do have questions for Ben, please post them in the Q&A chat, because we do have some coming up. But we have people tuning in from all over the world. Mark Jones, he says, hi, everyone. Happy to be joining you all from Northeast England. So we've got quite the crew out there. They are excited. So let's dive into some questions. I am going to Brendan, who is asking, can you change things like user profile or role with inline editing?
With inline editing, you should be able to edit a lot of the fields inside the user list view. However, there are some fields that you cannot. This is a great question, and I don't want to give the wrong answer, so we're going to get back to you on that on the Trailblazer community.
Great. We will absolutely do that. We'll make sure we mark that. We have another question about how do I find out how a user is getting access to a permission or object or field in the summary?
Yeah.
How did they get it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you go to our user access summary, this was the new access granted by row level action. So when you're in that summary and you're looking at either user permissions or object permissions, custom permissions, on the right-hand side, you'll see that row level action. Click access granted by. Then you'll see all the permission sets, permission set groups, and profiles, and the level of access for all of those, for whether it's a permission or an object permission.
That's awesome. The comments are still coming in, and we'll get to those. Someone said, if I can't see the new user list view, how do I turn it on?
Yeah. So right now in Winter, you would go to the user management settings, and you would turn on the enhanced user list view. And in the future, we hope to just have this on by default. But for now, you have to turn it on there.
Great. One more question. Kira is asking, do permission set groups factor in muting permissions?
That's a great question as well. I will have to get back.
We'll mark that one too. Okay, great. Ben is going to be here at the end of the show for a panel Q&A, so make sure you keep those questions coming. Thank you again. And now, next up to cover a fan favorite, flow enhancements in Winter 25, is Adam White, Director of Product Management, and we're going to talk automation. Make sure you're posting your questions now in the Q&A, because we are going to follow up this demo with questions for Adam. So Adam, over to you.
All right. Thank you. So I am so excited because this is actually my first admin URL. I've been on quite a few Flow URLs, but I've been actually chomping at the bits to take the reins from Diana. And by the way, I came prepared, as you can see. I did buy them on a very popular marketplace online. So if you're curious where I got them, that's where I got them. Now, let's dive right in. So a lot of you know that I am very excited about all the awesome things that we're doing in ScreenFlows, like ScreenFlow reactivity. Now, we're going to use a very common use case used by ScreenFlows, quickly creating records, right? So I've created a little demo here to highlight our brand new component, the action button. Now, a lot of times you need to quickly let users create contacts, but if you're like me, you got to worry about duplicate records. So how are we going to solve this? Well, usually users will type in the results here, and they might actually be creating a duplicate unknowingly. So I've created an action button here. The action button allows you to trigger auto-launched flows and bring the results back into the same screen. So what this is doing is fetching potential duplicate records, right? But you may not have enough information in a 3-column data table to determine if something is actually a duplicate. So I've actually added another action button to return more information about that contact record. And I'm pretty familiar with this person, so I can actually see that they have recent cases with us, and they match the other accounts that I'm expecting. So, like a good citizen, I'm not going to create that duplicate record. So, hooray for clean data, right? Now, another thing I wanted to call out on the screen here is we've actually enhanced the data table component. So if you have your components in single select mode, we no longer show radio buttons. This lets you deselect single records. Now, if you miss those radio buttons, we didn't get rid of them. If you mark your data table component as required, you'll still see those radio buttons. All right, now let's see how this was built. All right, so here we are on a screen. Now I dragged over the action button here, and you can see that we've got a few different things that we can do at the button level. We can set an input for the label, and we can even disable it so that if we can take advantage of all the cool reactive formulas that we released last year. So if you don't want that button to be clicked, you can set a formula to disable it until all the expected inputs are completed. So if I drill in here, you can see that we're launching this auto launch flow that is designed to search for contacts. And this looks pretty similar, if not identical, to subflows. So if you've set up a subflow before, you're going to feel right at home. So this flow expects a few things: the email address and last name fields, first and last name fields, which are just screen components. And down below, something else cool that we've added is that you can actually easily view the outputs of that record. So you can see error messages, the matching contacts, and even a handy dandy number for how many contacts we found, like if you wanted to put it in display text or drive things like conditional visibility based off the number of records that you found. So over here is the actual flow that we've run. Pretty easy. Now, the glorious thing about this is it can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. So you can use things like invocable actions to trigger like SOQL or SOSL, or like in this case, a pretty basic get records. So we pass in the first name, last name, email, and if we find matches off of any of those things, we provide the results to the screen. And just like a subflow, we have to then provide the output. So we set the results from our get records to an output of matching contacts. And we have our equals count here to provide the number of matching contacts to a number variable. And because we're good citizens here, we're having good camel case, good naming conventions, so we don't confuse anyone that happens to look at our flow later. So if we go back over, you can see this other action button here. Now, this one I built generically. So this can actually take a single contact ID or multiple contact IDs. Now, the important thing is here, when you're building these action flows, you want to think about how you can reuse them across multiple flows, right? Because you're probably going to have a lot of flows in your org that try to get contact data. Now, this one can do a whole lot of things. It can provide other account contact relationships, cases, products, orders, the entire record itself. Now, all of these things can be freely referenced as soon as they're run on the screen. So if I have my data table component here, we have a whole new section in our property editor called Screen Actions, where you can then select the results of your action. And then as soon as those things change, it just changes automatically. Nothing else is needed. Now, what if you wanted to get super duper fancy for you advanced Flownatics out there? Well, I have a cool little flow that I built that lets you check weather. So imagine you're like a field service agent or a field service dispatcher, or you're an account rep that want to schedule an outdoor event. Weather's pretty important. So I've built a little flow here that hits the AccuWeather API and returns a 5-day forecast and puts it all in a data table. So you can see here it takes in a zip code, and then I get a 5-day forecast. So I can see that October 12th has a 0% chance of rain, 82 degrees. That's pretty nice. Schedule that appointment right away. I'm really excited to share how this was built. Didn't have time to show how it was built for this show, but I'll be happy to do a recording. Just tag me in the Trailblazer community and I can do a little show for you. But I have so much more to show, so let's dive back over to our slides. So one awesome thing that we've done in this release is that we have overhauled the save time validation experience. So we no longer show errors with your flow and a tiny little motor on the top right. We now have a full-fledged panel that lets you easily discern what issues your flow has, which is a huge quality of life improvement. Now, if you were paying attention in the flow release Readiness Live on Wednesday, we also covered something else that's coming, upsert. So last release, you can actually upsert a single record, but now you can upsert multiple records, making your flows significantly more performant, and most importantly, cleaning up your canvas so you don't need multiple loops to determine which contacts you have to create, which ones you have to update. Huge, huge win, and a really popular ask in the community. Now, next up, more ScreenFlow love. We've made some enhancement to the repeater component. Now, The repeater component, if you haven't played around with it yet, allows you to embed a repeatable section of screen components that lets you embed lists of data for your users to create and update on the fly. Now, this release, we've added the ability for you to define a record collection as your source data so that when your users enter the screen, they'll already have records. So all I have to do is add, remove, or update, which is just a godsend for people that don't want to navigate between related lists. All they need to do are update a few fields across records. Huge, huge win. Really exciting feature. Now, another thing I inherited from Diana that I wanted to bring over here was the idea of flow-per-read. There's so many things to cover this release that sometimes we just have to hit them real fast. This is actually a really big one. We've made significant improvements to the email action. So the first thing that we did was we added CC and BCC capabilities to the action, which was alone 27,000 points. Now we also added we also raised the email action recipient limit from a sad 5 to a nice meaty 150, which huge win, and it really lets you use this action in far more places and use cases. More ScreenFlow love. So for those of you that like to use the choice lookup component, you can now select multiple records. Now, with the choice lookup component, you can have a lookup-like experience for things like pick list values. And most importantly, you can filter the records within them based off other things that you've done in your screen. So a really cool component, made even cooler by allowing you to do multi-select. And we also gave transforms some love this release. So for you intermediate folks and advanced folks, you'll know that a common pain point is converting record collections to what we call primitive collections or basic collections like text collections. So here you can select something like an account collection, convert all the IDs to a text collection, and then use them in other places that need it. For example, the in operator. So you no longer need to use loops or subflows or apex to do all that for you. All right here, making your flow better. Another really cool thing, if you've had a chance to play around with Einstein 1 and AI, we now let you generate formulas directly within the formula editor. Simply tell it what you need, provide your variable names, and you're done. No more fiddling around with ChatGPT and hoping that something works. Really awesome, game-changing improvement for folks. And lastly, I call this, a small but mighty feature. We now show the API name for components that cannot be rendered for preview, right? So before, we would just show the API name or the type of the component. Now we show the label or API name, depending on which one is supported, directly in here. So if you've got 5 different custom components, before they would all said the same thing. You had to click through each of them to figure out which one you need to edit. Now it's all right there. And that's all I've got. I'm really excited about everything coming this release. I couldn't even fit everything in it, but I'm excited to dive into some Q&A.
Thanks, Adam. Questions are coming in, so we are going to get to them. If you have more questions for Adam, please post them in the Q&A tab on Salesforce Plus. But first, everybody loves that you're here, loves your goggles. Julia said, my flows are about to be so much cleaner, cannot wait. And Jack said, I have over 5 flows in my current org. The email action improvement is helping me with. Thank you for that one for sure. So lots of love in the chat. But we do have questions. Are you ready? All right.
Ready.
John asked, and I believe this came in during the contact flow, can this be exposed to external users? For example, when an external user creates a community user.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. With the external data, you always want to be a little careful about what kind of data you're putting into it. But as long as that user has access to the auto launch flow that you're running, it'll work just fine.
Great. And let's stay on the contact flow. Brandon is asking if you can supply the contact flow as a template. I'd love to recreate this for my org.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to post how I did it on the community. It's very, very simple. It's a very popular use case, so I'd imagine you're not alone there. Yeah. And we're going to be even making this even better next release. So I'm going to see if that little spoiler comes up again, but I'll bring it up later.
Okay, well, keep the questions coming. Adam is in a agreeable mood, so let's keep asking for this wish list. We love this. Mark Jones is having a bit of an issue with reactive screen flows. I found that the ability to auto-populate a repeater component isn't reactive. I've tried this using both a choice lookup and a data fetcher. Is the repeater component reactive yet? And if not, is that on the roadmap for a future release?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There are a few reactivity-related gaps with the repeater. Action buttons are one of them. So there are a few things. One, an action button's results can't go into a repeater, and an action button can't dynamically generate a repeater. So there are a few gaps, most notably formulas within repeaters. So formulas are a pretty big driver of reactivity. And we don't yet have a way to establish what we call context within the repeater. So if you're creating a formula, we actually don't know that you're in a repeater, which is kind of a catch-22. But one of those things that we have to solve for is the ability to know that you're referencing a repeater wherever you are when you're building your screen. So once we get over that hump, we'll address all of those other issues, but we are aware that that is an issue.
Great. And then Tomo is asking do we need to have a duplicate rule on both contact and account object? Tomo says, my org is very old. I call that seasoned, but interchangeable. So do you have to have a duplicate rule on both contact and account objects?
So my flow is not built using duplicate rules. However, that would actually be something that you would see if you tried to do an actual, what we call DML. So if you tried to actually create that record and you had a duplicate rule, you'd see an error. So my goal was preventing that from happening, but you're going to have contacts created anywhere in your system, not just an amazing screen flow that we built, right? You have data loads, you have a lot of places where you need to protect your data. I would recommend creating duplicate rules just as a good practice. So not for that flow in particular, but in general, they're good to have.
Good best practices. And then Tim is wondering, is it possible for the action button to trigger a duplicate rule to check for duplicate records?
Yes. So that is one of the glorious things about using auto launch flows. I don't think we have an out-of-the-box way of detecting duplicates, but I'm pretty sure Rakesh Gupta on Automation Champion built a really easy invocable action that you could then put in one of these auto launched flows to do that.
Awesome. So Adam, everybody is very, very excited. Elena would like to know how to turn on the AI formula helper.
Yeah, so for that, you need to first opt into it in process automation settings, but you also have to have the Einstein 1 SKUs, so all the AI SKUs.
Great. And then we did talk earlier in the week a lot about repeaters and loops. So Katerina would like to know if you still need loops with the repeater.
Sadly, yes. So if you watch the Q&A section of the flow RL, you'll hear Sam Reynard, the PM for repeater, lament that unfortunately we couldn't get transform support, but longer term we really want transform support. So instead of looping over those repeater outputs, you'd just be able to easily transform them into the format that you want. So unfortunately, we are kind of stuck with loops, but we do aim to get it into transform soon.
Great. Well, I believe we are coming up to the end, but one of the things everybody always wants to know is a little bit of a sneak peek. So what are you most excited about when you look at the roadmap coming up? Yeah, I know it's hard to pick one thing because you all are shipping so much greatness, but what are you most excited about?
Well, it's like choosing a favorite child. Yeah, that's really tough. So, I mean, just to keep things close to the use case here, one of the things that my team is working on right now is a buttonless version of those screen actions. So imagine me filling out that contact form there in the beginning and showing duplicates as I type. We're calling them reactive screen actions. You can even see it in the component preview that I had on the screen. It's heavily inspired by the data fetcher component out there on the App Exchange, which had been a huge hit. And I'm really excited for that one. And then just some of the other things coming that have just been asked for such a long time. Like, for example, adding a limit to get records has been a big blocker for companies that have objects that have 50,000 plus records who are getting query limit errors, right? So that's something that we're working on. And I even got the go ahead to talk about one other cool thing coming that I think people get super jazzed about. We're looking at adding collapsible and grouped elements in the canvas so that you can create groups of content and elements in your screen to create a more organized flow.
Amazing. I just have to say that Julia has said admin preview already the MVP of release readiness. So thank you so much for joining us and for your time and expertise. Thanks, Adam. Next up, we have Elizabeth Martin, Senior Product Manager for Records Experience. She's here with us to show you the latest in Lightning App Builder. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Julie. Apologies. I'm the product manager for the Records Experience teams, which own the UI components and data providers for Salesforce records across the Salesforce platform. As part of that, we own dynamic forms and the roadmap for dynamic forms. So I'm extremely excited to be talking about some of the enhancements we have there today. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. The first feature that I want to talk about is conditional field formatting and specifically icon support. This is going to close out over 38,000 idea exchange items. This idea exchange item was created all the way back in 2007. For this feature, when we started building it, we went out to all of you and held listening sessions earlier this year to best understand what use cases and what challenges this would help with. And what we heard from all of you is that you want to call attention to key fields based on their values so that your end users don't have to sift through all of the text on the page to understand what's going on. Now, one thing that I will call out is that this feature is going to be available on a rolling basis. It's a slightly staggered release from our standard release schedule. And so it's going to be available in pre-release orgs starting next week. It's not already in pre-release orgs like many of the other winter release features. The last thing I'll say about this feature is that it is available in a low-code way from directly within Lightning App Builder. So you no longer have to upload your own images and create those formula fields to be able to create these custom visual indicators. We are not releasing highlight support in this particular release, so we're not marking the idea as completely closed yet. We're only marking it as partially delivered. If you are interested in highlight support, we hope to bring that in a later release, and we'd love to hear your use cases for that if you want to go ahead and comment on that idea exchange item. The next feature that I'm really excited to announce is the Dynamic Highlights panel. This is going to close out over 20,000 idea exchange points across 4 different idea exchange items. And what it will allow you to do is manage the fields for the Highlights panel from directly within Lightning App Builder, just like you can manage the fields for anything else on the page. Now, this gives you all the capabilities of dynamic forms. So you can go ahead and apply conditional visibility rules, and you can also take advantage of cross-object fields for fields in the highlights panel and conditional field formatting as of the Winter 25 release. One of the things that we heard from all of you is that the previous limit of only 7 fields is not enough. And so we've increased the limit to the number of fields in the highlights panel up to 12. If that's not enough, I would like to hear from you. Please reach out via either your account executive or comment on the idea exchange update, whatever is easiest for you, because we do have the ability to potentially modify that if needed. The next feature that I'm really excited to announce is Einstein for Formula. We had a survey that was provided earlier this year that went out to all of you to best understand what are some of the features that you would like help configuring when we're thinking about adding in AI-assisted configuration capabilities. And one of the things that we heard is that formulas are really difficult to manage, to understand what's going on, especially when you're coming into maybe an older Salesforce org that has a lot of formulas that maybe you haven't set up, and also to troubleshoot and debug. Now, Brinkle is the product manager for this particular feature, and he's available in the chat to answer all of your difficult questions. So please don't hold back with those. And then the last feature that I'm really excited to announce is the list view multi-column sort. Now, this is going to close out over 80,000 idea exchange points. This is a long-awaited feature enhancement. It will allow you to set up to 5 different columns of criteria for sorting. This is managed at the individual level, and once you set this up, it will retain that history. So when you log back in, you'll still have that configuration. This is a beta in winter 25, so you will have to go into the setup menu in order to enable it. It will not be enabled by default. And note that this release does not include the admin defined default. So that is something that we are hoping to tackle in a future release. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into the demo. Now I'm going to demo today from the perspective of a Salesforce admin. And I'm coming into a new org that's new to me, that has a lot of configuration that's already there. And I need to quickly understand what's been happening, what's going on, why have these things been configured, and make some modifications to some of the layouts. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into, and I need to start understanding my formula fields. I might have a number of formula fields that I need to take a look at. And as you can see in this particular example, this formula field is a little bit long, it's complex, there are a lot of different variables here. But on the upper right-hand side of the formula editor, I have a new button that allows me to see the formula assistant. And when I open that up, it tells me there's no errors with my formula, it looks good. And I can go ahead and request that it explains what's going on with this formula. And it gives me a quick little explanation. It's kind of short, so I'm going to go ahead and click more details. And it gives me a fairly decent explanation of what this formula is doing. Now, this is helpful, but what if there was an error in this formula? How could this help with that? I'm going to go ahead and introduce an error by misspelling one of the fields in the formula. And after I do that, I'm going to go ahead and open up that formula assistant again. And you can see, unlike the first time that I opened it up, it's now telling me that I have something wrong. The field types doesn't exist, and so it suggests it could potentially fix this. Now, this is really making my life easier. Rather than having to kind of sort through this as an admin and figure out what's going on, I can go ahead and select Fix. It provides me an update that it recommends, and I can go ahead and just take that and apply it directly into my formula field so everything looks good. Now that I've got my formula field figured out, I'm going to go ahead and make some modifications to my Lightning record page. Now, I need to make some updates to my account page, and I would like to apply some visibility rules to fields on the highlights panel. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the old highlights panel and go to the fields palette and bring the new dynamic highlights panel in. Now from here, once I bring my highlights panel in, I can start bringing on my basic fields that I want to see. And I can go ahead and bring all of my fields from directly in Lightning App Builder. I'm going to bring my new field that I just created, the account temperature field. And then I'm going to bring the number of open cases field, which is actually summarizing all of the open cases across this org. Now, this number of open cases field is actually not relevant unless it's at a level that's of concern. So I'm going to apply a visibility rule to this field, and I don't want it to show in the highlights panel at the top of the page unless it's greater than 3. If it's not greater than 3, I don't need to see it right at the top of the page. Now I'm also going to go ahead and apply a formatting rule set to this. You can see I have a new option to do this from the property panel. And I'm going to create a new rule set. Now, a rule set could contain a single rule, or it could contain multiple. I'm just going to do a single one today. And this is just going to include an indicator when the number of open cases is greater than or equal to 5. So we don't want it to show up in the highlights panel if it's less than 3. And once it starts to get even larger, greater than 5, then we actually want to apply a warning indicator so that our account rep's attention is called to that and they're not reaching out to that customer if that's the case. Now you can see here, I could add additional rules. If I wanted to, I could have additional rules based on other criteria. So it could show different icons based on different values. But for now, I'm just going to use this simple example. And we can go ahead and save the page and jump back and take a look at the runtime. And I will go ahead and refresh to make sure that I have the latest configuration. And once we jump back here, we can see we have our new dynamic highlights panel with the fields we just configured in Lightning App Builder. We have our number of open cases field is actually hidden because you can see as it's showing down here in the case information section, there are only 3 open cases. And so we don't necessarily need to have that front and center for our account rep. Now let's jump over to a different page just to take a look at what this might look like with a different scenario. For this particular account, there are actually 8 open cases. And so we have that field showing up at the top. We can call our account rep's attention to it immediately. This is actually at a level that's probably where they might not want to be reaching out to the customer. So we have that warning indicator using conditional field formatting there. And that wraps up our demo. And just one last thing that I would like to call out is that we'd love to continue this conversation on the Roadmap Exchange. You saw this slide earlier from Ben. We have another short link for the Lightning Platform Roadmap. You can see at the bottom, sftc.co/Lightning Platform Roadmap. And there you can see all of the features we've recently delivered, the ones that we have in progress, and those that are planned and those that we're seeking feedback on. We'd love to hear your feedback and your use cases. And that wraps it up from my side.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. We've got a lot of comments in the chat, also a lot of questions, not a surprise at all. First Squire says, don't underestimate the power of conditional formatting. Such a great way to improve UX. Nadia says, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So great job. So let's jump into some questions. Steve is asking if conditional formatting needs to be turned on. I haven't seen it appear on any fields using dynamic forms yet.
Great question. And this is back to what I mentioned about the staggered release. So this is going to be available in pre-release orgs next week. We expect the 15th or the 16th. Safe harbor, and then it will be available on a rolling basis from there. So we expect it to be in sandbox orgs towards the end of October and in production in early November.
Great, let's stay there on availability. When will the conditional formatting feature be available? Oh wait, you just, for the dynamic highlights panel, is it available in both?
Yes, it will be the same availability for the highlights panel as it is for the rest of the page.
Got it. Great. And then Mark Jones has some feedback. He said the dynamic highlights panel has a lot of white space above and below the fields. Is this something that we can reduce?
That's a good question. I would try the compact setting. I think I had it on the less compact setting and see if that helps. But other than that, we'd love to hear that feedback. And so maybe reach out and provide that feedback on the Idea Exchange update if you're still having trouble.
Great, because you are knocking down those points. I think you might have set a record this release readiness. We'll have to check into that. But Tim is asking if there will ever be permission-based list view. I'd love to limit what views are available based on the profile or permissions.
That's a great question. I think that's a good one for the chat, and I will jump in and make sure with our product manager and confirm the answer there. Great. And get back to that in the chat.
Thank you. We also have a question coming in from Harrison. Does the dynamic highlights panel have the same limitations around number of fields that can be displayed?
The number of fields is increased from the previous limit of 7 up to 12. And if that's not enough, we'd love to hear the feedback. And so that's another great one to comment on the Idea Exchange update.
Great. We're going to stay there because Steve is asking something around that. If with the new increase, it's great, but if I have a field that is currently hidden, can I replace this field with another temporarily, making the actual highlighted fields 13, but not using them all?
That's a good question. Let me double check that and confirm before I get back to that, and I'll get back to that in the chat as well.
Great. And then similar question to you to wrap things up. Everyone loves Release Readiness Live, but they also like those little sneak peeks. I think so far everybody has spilled a few secrets. So would love to understand from you, what are you most excited about for Roadmap?
One of the things I'm most excited about is enabling AI-assisted configuration and setup. We're looking at some new potential features to help with page generation and page optimization, looking at ways to help admins who are maybe coming into orgs that they've inherited to understand what's being used the most, what's going to be most valuable for their end users, specifically using AI. So I won't say more there, but if all of you have use cases, have questions about that, would love to hear from you. And so it'd be great if you reach out.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for your time and for your efforts. Everyone is seemingly loving what you have brought to the table today. So thank you. And next, we have Aaron Kale, Director of Product Management. He's here to dig into Agentforce and Agent Builder. So Aaron, show us what admins need to know about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And hi, everyone. I'm excited to share with you today a little bit about Agentforce and how you admins can start building agents and bringing these to life. So as you may have heard, we are launching Agentforce this October, and we're very excited about it. We will have standard agents for sales, for service, but what we're really going to focus on today is, as an admin, how do you build your own and customize these agents? And that's what our Agent Builder is for. It's our easy interface to configure agents, connect them to channels, control what knowledge they use, and then preview and test them, which we know is critically important. So I'm going to spend as much time as I can showing what it looks like for real, but I'm going to start with a couple slides just to ground us in the key concepts of how these agents work. And we'll start with, what are the fundamental building blocks of your Agentforce agents? And we're going to talk about three things: topics, instructions, and actions. What is a topic? You can think of topics like the jobs to be done that you want this agent to do. So they can be like high-level buckets of functionality. There's some examples you'll see here, things like order management, handling repairs, answering questions from knowledge, managing appointments, kind of things like that. Big jobs you want to give this agent to do. And just like when you give a person a job to do, they need a couple of things to do it. They need instructions. How do I do this job? And they need the tools. They need the actions they can take to do that job. And those are our other two building blocks. Instructions are your how-to manual. How do I deploy these actions to do this job? How do I go about doing the job? How would you teach any person to do this job? And then actions are tools, and actions may be familiar to you from Copilot, from previous Agentforce releases. The key thing here is these are built with the same familiar platform components you all know and love. So you can take any flow and Apex and wrap it up and make it available to your agent as a tool, as an action for it to do to get a job done. Okay, so how does this actually work? How does it come together when agents are trying to do these jobs? We'll walk through this slide from left to right, and we'll start, like we like to at the beginning, with the trigger. So this is what launches the agent into action. We'll focus on a conversational use case here, a chat message coming in, but this can be anything. It can be an invocable action, an API, and we'll see that coming in the roadmap, opening up the way you can activate and deploy these agents. But for now, we'll use a conversational example. A question comes in from a customer: what's the status of my order? The first thing that your agent will do is compare that message and the conversation so far and all the context it has to the topics it has been assigned, to the jobs it's been given, and say, which topic is most relevant to help me help this customer right now? And in this case, this agent has an order management topic, so we'll select that topic. And at that point, the agent will pull up the instructions and actions that reside within that topic and start looping through them to help satisfy the customer and move the conversation forward. So it might have an instruction about, always asking for their email address before verifying an order, or never doing certain things, whatever the rules for that job may be, and then a set of actions available. It will run through those using our large language models to figure out what to do. And then eventually, once it's looped through that and gathered all the information it needs, it will reply back to the customer with a response. And if the customer replies again, we start that whole process again. So we're going to see this live in the builder in a moment, but grounding us a little bit, topics, instructions, actions, and how we loop through those to help customers get jobs done. Okay, let's take a look at the demo. So we are now in our agent builder. Let's start just by orienting ourselves a little bit. You see this panel here on the left. These are our topics. So these are those jobs to be done that this agent has been assigned. You'll see we have topics like appointment management, FAQs, order management. And if I click into one of those, we'll see those other building blocks, instructions and actions. So our topic has a name, it has a description. This is what the agent uses to figure out when to activate this topic. And it has a scope. What's the scope of the job? What are the guardrails there? In this case, our jobs only to help with order questions and warranty questions. Instructions, like I shared, are the how to do this job. It's your instruction manual. So before looking up order status, ask for email and order number. For sharing order status, we have some instructions on how to format the response back to the customer. And what's really cool here for admins is you're not writing code and regex to how to format dates and transform. Somebody wrote Tuesday, but I want it to be formatted this way. It's all just natural language instructions to help you customize and build these agents. And then lastly, we have topics. These are the tools. In this case, we have 3 flow-based actions in this agent around checking warranty, adding something to a cart, and looking up order information. So those are your topics, those building blocks. In the center of the screen, we have our plan canvas, which is where you see the reasoning of the agent. We'll see that in a moment. And on the right, we have our conversation preview, where you can test and iterate with these agents. So let's start off by asking a question. Let's say, I would like to schedule an appointment. And I'm not the greatest at typing live, but one of the benefits of these is thanks to large language models and generative AI, they understand the way the humans type and interact. So those spelling errors don't make any difference here. And we'll see that prompt came through, that user request, that's our trigger. The first thing the agent did is say, which topic is relevant here? They're asking about making an appointment. I have an appointment management topic. Perfect. What are the instructions and the actions I have available in that topic? And then based off those, it looks like we're still just gathering information. I have some instructions. I'll start off by asking them what the date is to do that, which follows my instructions. And I could say something like next week, Tuesday, and we'll see that process loops through again. The agent will say, are we still asking about the same topic? Looks like we are. I've gathered some more information. So now I can run an action, grab those available time slots, and offer these are the times that are available. And maybe I say the lunchtime one looks great. Once again, one of the benefits, the power of agents, they converse in natural language. I don't have to frame it exactly the way it was offered. And we'll see now with that, our agent ran through again. Now it was able to use the confirm appointment action and actually book that appointment. So just like that, natural language, a couple of flows, and we have the conversational experience. And then best of all, if I change topics at any point, if I say, actually, what's my order status? We'll see we go through that same loop, that same iteration. And now we say, now we're asking about order management. Let me gather the information I need to do that. So we can very nimbly hop through the conversation in a way that really is difficult with old-fashioned dialogue trees. A couple more things to show here, so I'll refresh and clear the conversation. One of the things that's so powerful about topics is not just that they control what the agent can do, but they limit what the agent can do. So what do we do if somebody asks something out of bounds or inappropriate? Let's start by maybe reverse engineering. So if I try something like, I'm a bad actor, I want to know how this agent works. Let me see if I can get it to reveal its instructions. We'll see that we have a system topic for reverse engineering. So anything like that is classified by the agent as reverse engineering and delicately brushed aside so that nothing goes wrong. Similarly, if I ask something that's just unrelated to this agent, my favorite is, how many cheeseburgers should I eat for breakfast? We'll see we have a topic for off topic where the agent goes, well, I don't have any topics about that. So let me just nimbly try to guide you back to what I can help you with today. And then finally, if I'm just an unhappy person and say something rude or inappropriate, we have a system topic for inappropriate content. So the agent won't engage, it won't get you in hot water there. It'll delicately avoid those situations and try to steer you back on task. Awesome. That wraps up our demo of Agentforce. One final thing before I hand it back to Carolyn. In addition to all that goodness, we are excited to announce a new consumption-based license for platform login and dev credits. So we've heard the feedback that I may have infrequent users who need some access, but it's not that common doesn't necessarily make sense with our current licensing. We now offer a consumption-based license so those infrequent users can access and use the apps and agents that you build. So that wraps us up today. I'll hand it back to Carolyn. Thank you all.
Thanks, Aaron. It's so amazing to see how Agentforce works and then what organizations can do with it. And you actually answered the most popular question. How do customers get access? Everybody wants to know. So that introduction of that consumption-based pricing is pretty awesome. So what should they do if they're excited?
I'll hop in there for a moment. We are launching Agentforce later October, and there'll be new licensing, new SKUs available to get access to service agents, sales agents, et cetera. This platform license is another thing we're excited to share that will help those infrequent use cases. But getting access to Agentforce will be rolling out later this October as a new offer.
Amazing. Okay, and so we've got just a couple questions for you before we let you roll. It's around actions and agents. So can we have an action tied to multiple topics?
Yes, absolutely. One action can be included in multiple topics and multiple agents, and that's actually really common. One of the patterns we've seen be really successful with the customers who are piloting the functionality is I might want my search knowledge and answer questions action in just about every topic. Because when somebody asks about appointments, there might be appointment policy questions. When they ask about orders, there could be order policy questions. So you can definitely put those actions in multiple places, but it helps you boundary only having the relevant stuff for that topic in that topic as well.
Great, and it sounds like the topics and the actions, they're similar to a lot of the ways we build things in reusable components. So you can use them across multiple, activities that you need to be completed. So that's pretty great. Then we have a question around what are some example topics that customers have built? What have you seen?
Yeah, FAQ, and so I'll start with knowledge. If you want to get up and running and add a ton of value fast, we have an out-of-the-box knowledge action that will search your knowledge articles. At GA, you will also be able to upload files or PDFs. So if you're not a knowledge user, but you have some useful documents that you can use to ground your agent, you can upload those. So FAQ over knowledge articles, really common topic, very easy to get running quick. We've seen really big success even with just that use case. Other common ones, it really depends on the industry and the customer, but things like managing appointments, managing loyalty points, order status is a really common one, that transactional piece. But what's exciting with the platform is you can really build anything. So my advice would be knowledge Q&A is a great place to get started and get something live and adding value fast. And then think, what makes sense for your business. And with topics and actions, you can really get anywhere.
Yeah, I love that. And, our customers love learning from other customers. We know because we are speaking to our community. So where can they share their use cases or what they're excited about? Where would you recommend they would share?
Gosh.
Straight to you.
Yeah, straight to that's where it ends up eventually. I'd say going to our kind of standard idea exchange, Trailblazer community. All of our product management team is always there. We want to hear what you Trailblazers are saying. And the more we kind of stay to those forums, the easier it is for us to hear and capture it all. And we know there's going to be tons of awesome feedback as we launch. We're excited to hear it.
Great. We are really, really happy you were here with us. Thank you so much, Aaron. And we've unpacked a lot this week. Now we're going to cap it all off with one final Q&A session back here at the desk. And by special appearance, Angela Lee, Director of Product Management of Agentforce, is back with us today to answer your questions alongside Ben Sklar. And as always, you can post your questions in the Q&A tab on Salesforce Plus. So welcome back. We've had a few more questions come in, and I would love to start, Ben, with you. Kimberly was wondering, she saw the original end of support for profiles timeframe of December 31st, 2025 has been recanted. Has there been any new deadlines for moving profiles to permission sets published?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's no new deadline for this. However, we have released a lot of really good best practices for how you do permission sets, permission set groups, and what do you do with your profiles. Our product colleague, Cheryl Feldman, has written a blog on the Salesforce admin blog site. And with that, there's a lot of links to trailheads that you can take, and we have a lot of other great documentation about best practices. So we really recommend that you all check that out.
Great, that is wonderful. Devin would like to know, can you determine what fields do or do not get copied when cloning users for the future release that includes that?
Yeah, so as mentioned, cloning users is something that's coming in the future. So we're still thinking about how we want to develop that feature. And as I said before, we really want to hear from all of you. So if you go to the Roadmap Exchange, again, that's sfdc.co/user access roadmap, you can actually comment there and tell us what you would like for the cloning users feature that we're thinking about. So
Great. That is wonderful. Angela, thank you for coming back. We had a wonderful chat earlier. I keep saying earlier in the week, but it was yesterday. So making sure I get my days correct. Let's talk a little bit about just what are customers saying to you early on around Agentforce? What are they most excited about? What has the community reaction been?
Actually, coming from Dreamforce, we had tons of hands-on workshops where we were able to actually do this Agentforce Accelerator. And what we did was essentially enable people to create an agent in under 6 minutes. And all we did was just give a couple of questions to the customer, and they would ask, "What's your biggest pain point? You know, what's something you would want an agent to do?" We're able to do that voice transcription, and then we would spin up an agent for them in under 10 minutes. So just pretty amazing.
Yeah.
There's no more complex dialogue trees. I think that's like that simplicity and ease of use is what people are most excited about.
Yeah, I saw on social a 9-year-old built an agent at Dreamforce,
Yeah.
so that was pretty amazing. One of the questions here is, can I have multiple agents? Is it possible to have multiple?
Yes, absolutely. So within your org, you can have up to 20 agents at this point. So I'm sure we'll continue to add capacity for that. But yeah, 20 is what we're looking at right now.
And whenever I was talking to customers at Dreamforce, we were having chats around where do I get started? I think, there's so many possibilities. We've got the out-of-box agents that are available for people who want to try, but the customization is where a lot of the magic happens. And part of my conversation and advice was always, why don't you talk to your teams and find out what are those tedious tasks that you do that drain a lot of your day that you wish someone else could complete for you? And that's a good starting point for an agent list. Are there any other tips and tricks that you can recommend for people to start documenting where they might build an agent?
Yeah, great question. So I think we talked about this yesterday in the developer RL. We have that Coral Cloud website, and we put together a little QR code where you can even get started just to see how you can connect agent to, if you have an existing experience customization site, or if you just want to just test out what are those different topics or instructions that you can put together for your agent to handle. In terms of use cases, like really talk to each of your business users, right? You can think about, let's take sales as an example. I know for a lot of salespeople, you spend a lot of time maybe drafting emails or thinking about how to convert leads. So that is a particular use case that can be automated and done by an agent. And we have an out-of-the-box agent that does that for you with our new agent SDR. But you can start thinking about what are those additional topics I might want to include in that agent to start with. And then a little bit of a sneak peek, but we're also going to start thinking about how do you start an agent from scratch? And that's something that we are actively thinking about and hoping to do in the next couple months. Because we know we have out-of-the-box ones, but we know everyone has different use cases, so you can start building them from scratch as well.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point, asking your internal teams, where would you want to get started, but then also asking your customers. Because I think as I interact with different brands or need to accomplish something, really having an agent complete, even just changing my flight this week was very difficult. And so I'd have loved to them just give me options and let me choose one, right? And then book me. That would be pretty awesome. So that's my use case. So Ben, we are going to come back to you. We do have one more question as I scroll here. Rick would like to know, does the public group list now use list views?
So in the winter release, we modernized the user list view. So that's the one you're going to see in winter. But over the course of the next 6 to 18 months, we are planning to modernize more list views inside of setup. It sounds like the public group one might be a priority to you. So tell us, again, go to the Roadmap Exchange, let us know what list views do you want to see modernized and what's your priority list. We'd love to hear it. And then we can prioritize it accordingly.
Yeah, and you love to come back and say, we did that.
Yep.
Ship that.
Exactly.
That's great. So final question as we wrap up. You have spilled a lot of secrets. I wrote Secret Spiller because you had a lot of those. But what are you most excited for just in general across the roadmap?
Yeah. So as I just talked about, we're creating more list views. We're also creating more summaries. I think I'm most excited about enhancing those summaries. And so over the course of the next few releases, we're going to bring more editability to those summaries. So it will go from being primarily a read-only experience where you can see where is the user getting permission from and what level of access do they have. But in the future, you'll be able to go there and actually edit all of those permissions right from that screen, saving you even more time. So I think I'm most excited about that.
That's awesome. Thank you. And then same question to you. What are you most excited about? I mean, the possibilities are endless, so it might be hard to pick one.
I think what we alluded to a little bit, which is like custom agents. Right now we have lots of out-of-the-box ones, but creating an agent from scratch, that is going to be, I think, a game changer for a lot of different customers and users, because we don't know all of your use cases, but you do. You know how your customers work and what they're looking for. So being able to build like a travel agent app, I know for me, I'm like meal prep app or something like the agent or something like that would be great. So
Amazing.
I think I'm really, really excited about that.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for your time, for your energy, for everything that you build for our community. And even though we are wrapping up this show, you can still ask questions in the Release Readiness Trailblazer community using the hashtag SalesforceRRL, and we'll get you an expert answer. Be sure to check out the Be Release Ready page for all of the resources that you need by scanning the QR code or visiting the link sforce.co/bereleaseready. We have a lot of great resources on there, so be sure to check them out. And that is a wrap on Release Readiness Live Winter 25 edition. We have covered Sales Cloud, Flow, Developer Preview, Service Cloud, Health Cloud, CRM Analytics, and Admin Preview. All episodes are available on demand on Salesforce Plus. And a reminder that your feedback helps us improve and create the content that you want. So please scan the QR code on the screen to take a short survey. And as a thank you, you'll be entered into our sweepstakes to win one of 5 Salesforce certification vouchers. And coming up later this month, Discover Agentforce, what AI was meant to be. Scan the QR code on your screen to register now. The live launch event kicks off on Salesforce Plus on October 29th at 9 a.m. Pacific. You can hear from companies who are using autonomous agents to take action and drive results 24/7, and then get ready to build your own. You won't want to miss it. Well, I'm Carolyn Bathauer. Thank you so much for tuning in and allowing me the honor and privilege of being your new host of Release Readiness Live. We'll catch you on next time in the cloud.